What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. My name is Haley, otherwise known as the Fictional Scholar, and today we are going to be hopping in to one of two parts for one of my favorite ships of all time that I still to this day think should have been endgame, should have been canon, and that there is a reason that people like me have been able to hold on to this belief for over 15 years, and it is from one of the best animated TV shows of all time, in my opinion. That is right. We are going to be talking about Zutara from Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I remember I had always wanted Katara to end up with Zuko. Even when I was little watching this show, I always wanted her to be with Zuko. When I was younger, I couldn't really explain it because I didn't necessarily understand everything about it, but I was just like, I don't like her together with Aang. Like, that never sat right with me. And as I grew up and got older, I was just like, no, I definitely don't like her with Aang. Which, it's nothing against Aang, okay? It's nothing against Aang. I don't get it. I know, and before people come at me in the comments be like, oh, well, it's canon, it's in-game, they're made for each other, blah, blah, blah. What you're gonna say about this Zutara video makes no difference. Nothing you as a Katang shipper or anything like that can ever dissuade me from shipping Zutara. Just know that beforehand. I have been shipping them for over 15 years, and in that time period, nobody has ever said anything to get me to think differently. So it's not gonna happen. But yes, we are here to talk about Zutara, and it is gonna be a two-part video. So I live by a highway, and you can hear ambulances going, and I'm looking outside. Oh my gosh, this guy's driving he's driving in the grass, in the ditch! That is illegal! Let's refocus, shall we? So this is going to be a two-part video. So this first video, we're going to be talking about a lot of the parallels from the show with Zuko and Katara, from the Painted Lady and the Blue Spirit to Zuko alone, and again the Painted Lady. Just these episodes that really focus on their characters, but also give a lot of insight to how they kind of complement each other, because it really is interesting to see how they're set up so much like yin and yang, this Twee and Law push and pull that was talked about so much at the end of season 1 by Ko, the face stealer. And he's talking about how they've circled each other in this eternal dance and they balance one another. With all this talk about Twee and Law, I chose the wrong time to film, oh my goodness. I do feel like there's a lot of parallels between Zuko and Katara that a lot of people have pointed out before, but a lot of people also miss and kind of don't necessarily fully get the value of those parallels, in my opinion. So that's what this first video will be talking about, and then the second part of this video will be more talking about like storytelling sense and just how I feel like their relationship is together, how they work well together, the things they complement each other on, and how their relationship has progressed from season 1 all the way to season 3, everything like that. So without further ado, let's go into the video. Segment of this video is really going to be focusing on the Blue Spirit and the Painted Lady. These different personas that both Zuko and Katara build for each other to be somebody they're not, and to get things accomplished they necessarily wouldn't be able to do if they were just being themselves. So for Zuko, the Blue Spirit, of course, is his way to kind of in his own way betray the Fire Nation, especially when In season 1, when the blue spirit is introduced, he uses this guise, this mask. He uses it to break into this Fire Nation enclosement, and he frees Aang and saves him from being turned over to the Fire Lord by Admiral Zhao. And Zuko would not have been able to do that if he was just trying to do that as Zuko. But it also gives him a chance to kind of work with Aang without really working with Aang in that sense, because in his mind he was the blue spirit, not necessarily working with the Avatar, but someone working against the Fire Nation. As the blue spirit, Zuko is really able to kind of become someone different than what he's expected to be at this point. He's not a banished prince. He's not having to chase the Avatar. He's kind of made himself into this type of outcast and not social justice. I can't think of the word right now. But he's made himself into this person who kind of operates outside of the normal rules of society. And it helps him get away with a lot of things, but it also helps him work to do things that he needs to get done that he couldn't normally do as himself. Similarly to Katara in season 3, the episode The Painted Lady, she is able to become someone she isn't, this painted lady, this spiritual figure of this lake town, to be able to do something she wouldn't normally just be able to do as herself. She's able to go into this village and heal and give food and medicine and things like that, that as Katara herself wouldn't so easily be able to do. You know, they're disguised as colonials from the Earth Kingdom, but also she's from the Water Tribe. And since they're deep in the heart of the Fire Nation, it's not like she can just freely waterbend as she wants to and heal these people as she wants to. So she dons this disguise of the Painted Lady and is able to accomplish all of these things. She uses this disguise to go against the social norms of this town and goes and stands directly against this factory and this army that has been terrorizing this town. And with these two, there's a lot of similarities between the two, but there's a few differences as well. Zuko uses the blue spirit more as a way for him to get away with a lot of the things he does, like when he uses the blue spirit to let Aang out, you know, he gets away with it because nobody was able to see his face and Aang never told anybody. And also as the blue spirit, he's able to get away with these petty thefts and crimes, as, you know, him and Uncle are alone in season 2 and they're trying to survive. So Zuko dons the mask once again, setting out to get supplies for him and his uncle that he probably wouldn't have been able to otherwise. One, because his scar is actually very noticeable, so people would be able to recognize him from that. And also just being able to hide behind the mask makes him less apt to actually feel remorse for what he is doing. It's kind of, the mask is a way for Zuko to hide from what he's feeling inside. Contrary to that, Katara uses her disguise, this mask in the sense that she puts on, to amplify these feelings, and she's not hiding them, she's expressing them more than what she would, because she is going out and healing these people and helping these people, which she had been holding herself back from just as a colonial. And so there's this interesting parallel between the two of how they both have donned these disguises, these fake personas, in order to accomplish something that they wouldn't have been able to do as themselves. And they complement each other, because Zuko is hiding himself away and Katara is further expressing herself with these disguises. So they're opposites in a way, but they're complementing each other in the way that you can see the similarities of why they don the mask, of why they're still hiding from the people around them and the places around them. It is interesting to note that their disguises are the complete opposite color scheme of what we typically associate with them. Zuko is from the Fire Nation, which is mostly reds and oranges, those bright, bright, warm colors that are associated with fire, obviously. And he dons a blue and white mask. And blue and white is most often associated with the Water Tribe. It's those cooler colors, and it's the complete opposite of what we've seen him use before. And with Katara, she's from the Water Tribe. They have those blues and whites and those cool colors. And when she puts on the Painted Lady, she has a lot of reds and even like the black cloak, and she has the red paint on her face. So it is interesting to see how their color schemes basically swap with one another and the disguises they have. And they're the only two characters who actively take on a disguise that has a lasting impact. Like, sure, you know, the gang has had to disguise themselves before just to kind of go under the radar at certain points, but nothing like the Blue Spirit and the Painted Lady. Those are very distinct. Distinct enough that, one, they each got their own episodes, and we got to focus on them. So those two disguises are very out there. They're put in our faces, and it really shows how they kind of complement one another, but they also aren't the same either. They still have their differences, and they still have their own set of personal reasons of why they don the mask. But I do find it interesting that when they were in disguise, they kind of flip-flopped the color schemes, and they became basically the opposite of each other. Always thought that was kind of interesting. But the next part I want to talk about is, again, the Painted Lady, but instead of focusing on the Blue Spirit, I'm going to talk about the episode Zuko Alone. So Zuko Alone and the Painted Lady. The Painted Lady is probably the closest we get to a standalone episode for Katara. You know, despite, you know, there's the Southern Raiders and everything, but that's mostly just her and Zuko, which we'll talk about in the next video. But with Zuko Alone, you know, that episode is fantastic, but it's very heart-wrenching at the same time when you're learning about Zuko's past and the struggles that he's been through, and just kind of the very corrupt way that Ozai became Fire Lord, you know, all these things moving around. And with Katara and the Painted Lady, it's more of showing how she really does care for people, and how being divided by the war is affecting her as well, because she can't help the people she wants to because of where she's from and who she is. So one of the ways that these two episodes are very similar to each other and really kind of highlights both Zuko and Katara as both parallels, their similarities, but also their differences at the same time, and this kind of push and pull relationship they have, whether they're in the same area or not, is that they're both hiding who they are. Zuko is pretty much hiding under this false name of Lee and not letting this Earth Kingdom town know like who he really is, and he's helping out this family while they give him food because he was starving to death. He's under this guise of that he's really not telling anybody who he is, and he's kind of hiding. And for Katara, it's obvious she's hiding who she is, but while they already were hiding who they were as colonials, she takes it another step further when she dons the disguise of the Painted Lady, and she goes even further with that and is like, no, now nobody really knows who she is. She's this mysterious Painted Lady who's showing up, healing people, giving them food, medicine, and all of these other things. So both of them on each side are hiding who they are. And another similarity both of these episodes have is that Zuko and Katara both set out to kind of help drive these abusive soldiers away. Zuko does this whenever, you know, the soldiers are trying to bully this family, and he kind of steps in between them and keeps it from being too bad. And then when the little boy, what's his name, Lee? When the little boy is taken by the soldiers, Zuko goes to confront them, and he calls them out. He's just like, y'all are bullies, and takes them on in a fight. and just completely destroys them. Does a lot to really free that town of those abusive soldiers. And Katara does the same thing whenever she realizes, well, you know, Sokka makes the joke about blowing up the factory, but she realizes, like, no, that's the only way these abusive soldiers are gonna leave this town alone. So she sets out to destroy the factory, and she does that with the help of Aang. Once it's destroyed, the workers at the factory, the army, is blaming the village. So Katara, in one of her most iconic lines, she's like, no, I will never ever abandon people who need me. They go off and she just obliterates them, scares them to death, and drives the soldiers out of that town for good. The main difference in these two episodes is the response that both of them have when it comes to being who they really are. When Zuko is knocked to the ground and, you know, he's getting this flashback and his mother's saying, never forget who you are, he comes out in a blaze of glory, completely overpowers the Earth Kingdom soldier, but he does that by exposing himself and calling himself, I am Prince Zuko, you know, and he just goes all out for it. While Katara, on the other hand, she doesn't really come forward as much and say who she is. It's more of a, I know I'm not the painted lady, I know I tricked you, I shouldn't have, but I did, because I wanted to help. You know, she takes a more subtle approach while Zuko takes a very, very brazen approach. But it also, those approaches are very unique to who they are as characters, because Zuko at the time, what he was going through, he needed a moment like that to kind of understand, like, yes, this is who I am and I'm not gonna keep hiding that. And Katara, on the other hand, Katara knows who she is, and therefore she was just like, look, I know what I've done is wrong, but I still wanted to help you. So there's that difference there in how they approached revealing themselves. The main difference in how these two episodes end is just how the people react. You know, they've both done the same thing at this point. Zuko has helped out a family and has stood up against these abusive soldiers to try to get them away from this village. Katara has helped out a town and gotten these abusive soldiers out of the town. But in Zuko's case, because of who he is absolutely shunned. He is ridiculed. He is hated for being Fire Nation, and he ends up walking out of that, or riding out of that town alone without a word of thanks and without anything other than just him being completely and utterly rejected. It is heartbreaking to see. Katara, on the other hand, is welcomed. A lot of it is due to Sokka kind of coming to her aid and kind of be like, no, like, y'all should be thanking her for what she's done for you. But that's when Katara's like, no, I know what I've done is wrong. I shouldn't have tricked you, but I did. But I want to help. And the villagers are quick to come around and realize, like, oh, well, even if she is a waterbender, even if she is not from this nation, we're still going to accept this help that she's given us, and we're still going to thank her for it. And, you know, they let her work with them to clean the river and everything like that. And ultimately, Katara was thanked by the river spirit herself, the actual painted lady. But that stark difference just because of who they are, and they are set. And I feel like it's so symbolically important that when Zuko is riding off, and at the end of Zuko Alone, he is surrounded by the reds, oranges, and yellows, like all those warm colors, opposite of what he feels when he's the blue spirit. And Katara is back to her blues and whites and these calmer colors when she's by the water, like the clean water, looking at it. The major difference is that one persona brought good and one persona brought loneliness and emptiness. Is that when Zuko stopped being the blue spirit and acted just as himself, he was ridiculed and rejected. When Katara stopped being the painted lady and acted as herself, she was accepted and validated. And it's there's still this parallel between like their actions and how, yes, Zuko does care for people deep down, but he often doesn't act on it because of how he's treated afterwards. Katara definitely cares for people deep down and will continue to act on it no matter what happens. And so it's like they have these opposite, almost not opposite values, they have these opposite reasons of why they do or don't do things, but they still have the same core value deep inside, is that they care. They care enough to want to do something, whether or not in Katara's case she actually does, or in Zuko's case he doesn't. But the parallel between those two episodes, Zuko alone and the Painted Lady just by themselves, it's so easy to see how they're similar but how they're so different at the same time. And one, it really portrayed the state of the world with the war that was going on and how everybody was reacting to different things. And it was interesting to see how the Fire Nation was more adept to accept outside help from a Water Tribe person than someone in the Earth Kingdom would be willing to accept someone from the Fire Nation. And that goes to show just like the depth and the layers of the show and just how war affects different people. But the guises that Zuko and Katara use both help and hurt them at the same time. For Zuko, the blue spirit helps him more freely act than he would be able to as just himself, and he's able to kind of get away with a few things, but at the same time that logic hurts him because he feels like under that mask, after he's hidden everything away, he feels like he can do anything without any consequences because nobody knows who he is, which is why he resorted to all the stealing, everything like that. Katara, her guise, helps her in the fact that she is able to do things that she wouldn't normally do. She's able to really just help out a village, pretty much just heal the people she wanted to heal and help the people she wanted to help. The way it hurts her is that she is so quick to lie, not just to everybody in the town, but to all of her friends and her brother. Like, she's so willing to lie to them in order to help complete strangers. And while helping complete strangers is a good thing, she shouldn't have to lie about it. But her big lie is not just that she's taking on this painted lady persona, but her big lie is that she's hidden it from absolutely everybody because she wants to do it by herself without getting anybody else involved. Kind of comes back to bite her in the butt at the end of the episode, which is why she ends up needing Aang, Sokka, and Toph's help at the end. But it all kind of works out for her. But it's easy to see like why they chose these specific personas to hide behind and why operating under them gives them a certain amount of freedom that they didn't have before. Zuko and Katara, they, even when they're not like interacting together per se, just the way their stories have kind of played out through the seasons, they complement each other very well without them even having to interact. Their stories in some places just kind of align with each other, and it's so relatable. I think the most important thing to take away is that they complement each other rather than being opposites. They're complementary. They push and pull. There's some things that they do differently. There's some things that they do the same, but they really do have this sort of connection as Tweet and Law, this push and pull of yin and yang. We'll talk a little more about yin and yang and just kind of like the full circle of how they really do complement each other really well. One of the things I don't quite understand is why they set this up so nicely. These two people who complement each other so well and have a lot of similarities, and the only two in the show to have donned a disguise in order to get something else accomplished. the only two in the show that really have an episode that can ring so similar, like Zuko alone and the Painted Lady, and then not use that. But that is the conclusion of this first part of my case for Zutara. That's what I'm going to call it. The case for Zutara part 1. So I hope you liked this video. Make sure you keep an eye out for part 2. It should be up within a week or so, depending on just how fast I can edit and if everything in life cooperates with me. So it should be out in a week or so. So be on the lookout for that if you've liked this one. If you have any comments or anything you want to add to this discussion of what I've talked about, make sure you comment down below. I'm going to be getting everything ready for my next discussion of Zutara, and that's probably going to be a little bit of a longer video than this one. So be prepared for that. Make sure you have plenty of snacks and stuff for next time, because you'll need it. Make sure you follow all of my socials so you can stay up to date with what I'm doing, and we can keep in touch throughout the week. And make sure you subscribe to this channel if you don't want to miss anything else I post. Since it's the last week of October, I'm going to be posting another Halloween video, just probably of some cosplay or something of that. It may have come out before this video. I'm not sure like when I'm going to be posting. But make sure you stay for those videos too, because they were a lot of fun to film. But other than that, I will see y'all next time, scholars. Bye!